always interesting because we tend to see, at least in thoughts process, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore aligning closer because they didn't have the Cultural Revolution and what else was imposed on the Chinese on the mainland. Now, I need your help. So let's talk a little bit about sense making. Can you help us make sense of sense making? So, what is sense making, and how is it important?
So, my colleagues and I, we have this little reading group, which is precisely called that, making sense of sense making. And we actually gave ourselves a challenge, which is, can we define sense making without using the words sense and making? And so we thought about it. And I think the way that we came about it is actually how people navigate and orientate in this world with the massive amounts of patterns and novelty and signals that we receive. How do we actually digest and then orientate and then come together and create new meaning from that? So I think without using those two words, that's how I would sort of explain it. But if I were to remove that restriction on myself, then I think that sense making is really about understanding the world with all of its patterns, all of its signals, all of its novelty, understanding how it is that we process that, how we make sense of new patterns, new signals, so that we can actually exist and take action. Because human beings, again, are actually pattern processors. We're very good at processing patterns. A lot of the cognitive science tells us that we function on this pattern satisficing perspective. So that is, when I see a novel signal, I find the pattern that most closely relates to that in my mind, and I match it. And that's actually, on a very basic level, how I make sense of things. I match the patterns. So if, for example, I'm crossing the road in Antarctica, which I've never been, I'm assuming there's not much vehicles there, but I won't be able to cross the road. I won't be able to jaywalk with as much ease as I would in New York City, for example, where everybody jaywalks. I've been there enough. I know how to do it, because I don't have the patterns to match to it. And culturally, when you come into a new community, the traffic systems are different. The culture of whether people stop for pedestrians are different. How assertive you have to be are different. So it's really about pattern matching. So I think a lot of the work that we do is actually helping people to recognize the value of having a diversity of patterns, of not only patterning in a specific way, but actually expanding your diversity of patterns, expanding your diversity of ability to match. And that's how, we're better able to handle things like strategic surprises or novelty, because the more patterns you have, the better an assemblage you can form in your mind when something doesn't quite match up to what you're used